Well, okay, we finally have something that's a little glimmer of good news. I think we've identified a small buying opportunity. Now, it's not going to be a great buying opportunity. It's not going to be the buying opportunity, but we have a buying opportunity coming. A lot of you are going to be able to take advantage of it. Some of you can't. So we'd like you to talk with us. So, by the way, if you like these videos that we do, I can certainly use your support. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. We're not going to chase you at all, but it helps with our ratings with YouTube. I'm not quite sure how it all works, but the more people that subscribe and give you a thumbs up, better off you are. So we want to talk about how we as investors can make some money and maybe salvage some of our IRAs and our retirement accounts and get an opportunity to really add to our portfolio. So, we've been on a moratorium since March of 2022. We haven't put any new cash out. We haven't really started to increase our portfolio. We have been doing 1031 exchanges because if you watch my prior videos, we're talking about endangered cities, like Chicago, Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles, a lot of these places that are having problems and social problems and overtaxed and overburdened with the regulations. It's time for you to move your properties, and you can do a 1031 exchange for about $1,200, and you can move it to anywhere in the country. Florida, Texas, and Arizona would certainly be a place that you'd want to consider, and we've been just doing a ton of those. Those make great business opportunities. We love that, but no new capital. And now we think maybe, just maybe, we're starting to see a glimmer where maybe we can put some money out. So let me go to my very first slide, and let's just talk about that, because housing shortages are becoming very, very evident. We're starting to hear that. We've had a housing shortage for a long time, which means our demand has been really, really strong. It's not the demand that's the problem. It's the affordability and its demand destruction fostered by the Federal Reserve that's caused all this. So let me go to my next slide. Let's just take a really, really close look at this slide. I want you to see this. So this is coming out of Federal Reserve electronic database. Excuse me. So you can see here, and this again is coming right from the Fed, that our population has been steadily increasing for years and years and years. It's just been a straight growth path. And of course, what's happening now is we have more demand as people come across the borders. We're adding more and more demand for our limited supply. Now, we have a shortage. And a lot of our homes that are available in the wrong spot. People are moving to Florida, they're moving to Texas, they're moving to Nashville, they're moving to South Carolina. And of course, they're moving here to Arizona, Arizona being probably one of the top 5 markets in the whole world. And we have a shortfall. So I'm going to tell you that the national home builders are thinking we got 4.4 million, but Fannie Mae is thinking like 7.3 million short. It means we're short. Now, we've been talking about the fact that there is some inventory around. So a lot of this we need to juggle it around. And again, I'm going to reiterate, it is not in the right places. So we have properties in northern peninsula of Michigan. That's just no good. People are moving to Florida, Texas, and Arizona, and that's where the shortages are acute. So if you buy in those marketplaces, you're going to do exceptionally well. And if you look on that lower chart, you can see that since the great financial crisis, the builders have been trying to catch up, and they just have not. There's a period there, 2-3 years, where we built virtually next to nothing. So let me go to my next slide here, and let's just talk about that. Now, here in Phoenix, Arizona, I'm going to tell you that it's estimated that we have 250,000 units needed right now. We're short 250,000 units. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're a big in-migration state. We have so much business. We've got chip manufacturing. We got the Taiwan semiconductor being built here. It's a $50 billion project. Going to employ thousands and thousands of people, very high-paying jobs. And of course, this is causing demand problems for us. We just don't have enough homes for them. And it's an affordability issue. It's not a necessary demand. So very good for rentals, probably not so good for sales, but really, really good for rentals, and particularly right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Let me go to my next slide. Again, these border states we're being inundated with people coming from other places of the country, and each and every one of them is not a political statement. Excuse me. It's just the fact that people are going to need a place to live, and we have millions of people coming. So it's estimated 3 million. Maybe it's 4 million. Maybe it's 5. I don't know how many it is, but if it's 3 million, that means we need another 1 million to 1.5 million additional housing units. And if we're 4 to 7 million short, let's say Fannie Mae's right, and it's 7, That's 8.5 million units short. Well, the demand goes off the charts here. Demand just goes off the charts. So the question is, how do you buy and get ourselves a cash flow? Because we don't want to lose value on our property. Remember, we have been on a moratorium since March of 2022 on new capital because we see that the values are dropping because of demand destruction from the Federal Reserve. And we've been vindicated. Prices nationally are down 9.6%. So had we bought something in March, we'd have lost almost 10% of our property. So there's kind of a balancing act we have to worry about. But I'm telling you right now, this demand is not going away. So rentals are going to be an exceptionally good value for yourself. But we're not out of the woods. So let me just talk about what's going on. The banks failed right on schedule. Now, we've talked about my timing model. Timing model tells you what's going to happen, doesn't tell you why. But typically along the signpost, what we see is that we get banks failing. They failed right on time. We saw Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, Republic Bank, and of course, Credit Suisse all fell, and it's caused some problems in the economy. Now, we did get a big liquidity push because the week that these guys went down, the Federal Reserve and banks around the world, they put all kinds of money into the economy. They just flooded. That's the policy response, is flood the economy with money. But we're not out of the woods. So let me just talk about what's going on. Let's see if we can blow this up a little bit so you can see this. So because we've increased rates so quickly, a lot of the banks held the reserves in U.S. government bonds. So if you bought a bond at 0.6, I mean, why would you do that? But people did. And a lot of these banks have them for, a 10-year note at anywhere from 0.6 to 1.5 to 2%. And then rates go to 4 and 5. Well, that just decimates your bond portfolio. So it's estimated that commercial banks are holding $600 billion in unrealized losses. Now, they probably won't realize this unless they need the reserves, in which case they're going to start selling. And that's what got Silicon Valley and Republic and Signature into trouble with this. But if you contrast this, that red to the left, all the way to the left of that chart, that's the great financial crisis. Look at the bank unrealized losses in 2008 compared to now. We have like 10 times the amount of unrealized losses. This is a problem for our economy, just nothing to talk about. This is another problem in our economy, and this is coming from Howard Lutnick, who's with Canton Fitzgerald. He's talking about the commercial space. And of course, we've been talking about the commercial space too. It's just in terrible, terrible condition, just terrible condition. That's because cap rates have gone up. So Howard Lutnick is saying that the commercial is looking at maybe $700 billion in commercial debt that's going to default. Now, we're already talking about the banks having $600 billion in unrealized losses. Now they're talking about having commercial loans that are set to default. What's this going to do to our financial system? And you can see it already, because here's the Bank Term Funding Program, the BTFP. Banks are borrowing like crazy because they don't have any liquidity. So when you go to take $1,000 out of the bank, multiply that by how many customers they have, they just don't have the liquidity, and they have to go borrow from the Fed. Now, this went from 114 billion to over 150 billion. They're taking billions and billions of dollars worth of loans from the Federal Reserve just to keep the liquidity. And liquidity in the system has gotten so low that no one wants to park their money anywhere other than at the Fed. So they're getting an overnight rate, the SOFR rate, not the LIBOR. SOFR is an American rate. Everything is switching over to SOFR, Secured Overnight Financial Rate, versus the LIBOR. But that rate is at historic level of over 5.2%. And that, I think, is one of the reasons that's causing the Fed pivot, is because the banks are in trouble. I also think China is probably in trouble, and so is Japan. Japanese banks have the same problem, worse than here, because their interest rates are so low. If they even get normalized, just think what's going to happen to their bond portfolio. It'll just go crazy. Let me go to my next slide. Now, just to go on to the bad bank theme, Citigroup is laying off 20,000 employees here in the United States. They lost $1.8 billion in one quarter. So that's the fourth quarter 2023. They lost $1.8 billion. So they're laying off 20,000 employees. But they also own Banamex, which is Citi's Mexican consumer division. and they're laying off 40,000 people in Mexico for a total of 60,000 jobs worldwide. 60,000. That's a lot of people. And here we're still not out of the woods. Now, Blackstone itself, Blackstone, of course, which is a major name in the business. This is their office building. They're defaulting on their Manhattan office building. They've abandoned the tower, and it was valued at $600 million in 2014. When they refinanced it, it was just appraised for $175 million. Blackstone defaulted on a $308 million mortgage, and now the banks have it at $150 million offered on the market for sale, which automatically means that they're going to book a $150 million default minimum. Probably going to go closer to $200 million in loss just on this one building. Now, this is what happens when you have cap rates going up and you have a national vacancy factor of 9.6%. Now, that national vacancy is on office lease. That's not people coming to the market. So a lot of the Fortune 500 companies are honoring their lease. So when they honor the lease, even though no one's showing up at the office building, they're still paying the rent. When their leases start running out, they're not going to pay the rent anymore, and that vacancy factor is probably going to rise significantly, which is putting major pressure on prices of what are these. These properties are sold on income. What happens when the income slows down? They're just in trouble. Now, here's why I think we start seeing an opportunity. It's not for everybody. I don't want you to run out and just buy willy-nilly. You have to really be, we have to do a strategy on buying this. But if you follow economic cycle research, you see that they're also identifying that inflation is still on a downswing in the United States. It's already upswinging in Europe. Now, if you talk to, I work with Dr. Nenner. I've interviewed him many, many times. He's also talking about another cycle of inflation coming soon, and he thinks that'll be even worse than what it is. And here's what happens when you have inflationary cycles. You get three at a time. You get three phases. You have the first phase, then the second phase is worse than the third, and then the third phase is starting to slow down, so it won't be as bad. But it comes in three waves. We're finishing the first wave where interest rates are poised to come down because inflation's coming down. We're somewhere around 3. We're probably going to go 2. I think as housing gets under pressure, we could see us get into deflation where housing prices come down as well, and we see deflation come back. But the third wave is already on the horizon, and that's going to be up in the teens, probably 12, 13, 14%. Now, we're looking as a forecast, so does this have to happen? No. But it very well could. And between those two waves, you're going to have an opportunity to buy. Now, it's not a great one, but it's not bad. It's not a bad buy. You're probably going to get an opportunity to do this because look at what happens when you buy a real estate investment. So this is coming out of my portfolio. We've looked at it over 40 years, and that excludes 20, 21, and 22. So this would be like 1980 to 2020. The average appreciation here in Phoenix, Arizona was 3.98% on an annual basis over 40 years. So if you put 20% down and it appreciates the total package, remember we're leveraged, so you get the benefit of the entire leverage on your little portion, your little piece of capital that you're using. It's 5 times. So it goes up 3.98%. You get a 19.9% appreciation. That's pretty cool. And we've done that for over 35 years. But wait, there's more. We also have mortgages on it. So if you buy a house for $500,000, you put 20% down, you owe $400,000 on it. Who pays that $400,000 off for you? Your tenants do. So if you put $100 down, you're going to get something back at $500. So you're going to make $400,000 over the life of the loan. And someone else paid that off for you. So you get 4 times your money. Not so bad. But each year you get 6.45% principal reduction. That's what that gives you. And of course, we buy these for cash flow. Now, we won't buy anything for less than 4.5. So we got a 4.5% cash flow. And we can depreciate these buildings. You can't depreciate the lot, but you can depreciate the land. You can depreciate the structure. And you can take the whole cost of that structure off over 27 and a half years. The whole investment gets depreciated and gets deducted from your tax return. And if you add all those up, the total return over 40 years has been 35.1% a year, every year for 40 years. So you wonder how people get rich doing this stuff? That's how they do it. So 35.1%, and that's not including 20, 21, and 22. It is including the drawdown of the great financial crisis when homes actually went down. That's factored in there, and we still got 3.98% over 40 years. Now, just think if you put 3% down, you're just starting out. Well, if you got an FHA or a VA where you have really nominal and you put 3% down and you get 3.98% appreciation, you earned over 100% on your money. I mean, it just gets to be stupid money that you make. This is good for you. So if it doesn't work for everybody, some of you may want to do this and capture the principal reduction, the depreciation, and start building a portfolio. And if you don't necessarily need the income for yourself, you can get some cash flow going for yourself. But if you don't necessarily need it, let's start doing some principal reduction. So there are instances where this is going to work. We've identified a buying opportunity, probably coming maybe 5 or 6 months would be my guess. And I do think that we're still at risk. I think that prices are still going to come down. I don't think this is the buying opportunity. We have a wonderful buying opportunity coming. I don't think this is it. This is just a small buying opportunity that I wouldn't get real excited about doing this. I'd put my toe in the water. If you wanted to buy 10 properties, I'd just buy one. Or 20 properties, I'd just buy one. I wouldn't get too terribly crazy about it. But you might want to start building your portfolio and getting a little bit of gains on this stuff. So this is how you get a hold of me. If you want to do a consultation, you're welcome to reach me. West USA holds my license. They do all our back office work and our compliance work. So if you want to call me, reach me at this number. We can set an appointment. We can talk to you and your financial advisor and your spouse, of course. And please, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe. That really help us. If you need me, you know how to get hold of me. We'll see you guys. Bye-bye now.